Loving Sairam to sisters and brothers of Region 3. Welcome to Sai Region 3 YouTube channel broadcast. We had a wonderful satsang last week on 15th March on anger management. Thinking about it, it reminds me my student days where Swami, one of the Dashara discourse, he said how to divert your anger into a positive thing. Swami says, if you have the anger like this. Say that, Swami, why you are not coming to me? Why you are not blessing me? How long should I wait for you? So you divert the anger that becomes perseverance so that you get close to Swami. That's what he said beautifully. So this anger management broadcast had 200 devotees joining us online at one point, and some of the devotees from St. Thomas Virgin Islands also joining as well. Wonderful to see all of you. So feedback received was very positive, and everybody wanted speaker programs, Gayatri chanting, center, recorded bhajans. So today we will be incorporating some of them. In the future, we'll be inviting different guest speakers within the region as well as other regions too. Let's keep this as our weekly satsang for the entire region, and let's come together and pray to Swami for his grace so that we can get over these testing times. Samasta loka sukhino bhavantu. Jai Sairam.
Sairam, everyone. With Swami's blessings, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today. Dr. Anjana Chandran is a pediatrician and works at a community health center in Durham, North Carolina. She grew up making many trips to Prashanti Nilayam as her grandmother has lived there since the 1970s. She's been extremely blessed to work several times as a visiting physician in Swami's General Hospital. Anjana, a mother of two, is very passionate and is always working to improve the lives of children. She enjoys working with parents both at her clinic and in the local community and always strives to bring positive parenting practices into their lives. The study circle today is generated from the parent discussion group that meets weekly at Raleigh Sai Center. It is comprised of Group 1 and pre-SSC parents who discuss Swami's teachings on the values being covered in their SSC classes and how to practice these values at home. The current pre-SSC topic is anger management, and that'll be the topic covered during this session today. Sairam.
Sai Ram, and thank you for joining part 2 of our regional study circle on anger management. Swami says, anger is the fuel for all varieties of sin. Just a quick logistics check. Please do make sure you have something handy to write with so you can join in on the exercises today. We'll start with a quote from Swami. In our daily lives, we know that when we become angry, our nerves become weak and feeble, and we lose grip over ourselves. Even a moment of anger takes away our strength that we gather by eating good food for 3 months. Anger not only debilitates us and takes away the merit of our good deeds, but also enfeebles our condition. So our anger not only hurts others, but also hurts our very own bodies. Our objective for today's discussion is not just to manage our anger, as we learned last week, but to go deeper and start to root out our anger. Wouldn't that be nice? We'll cover a few more tools today from Stacy and Paul Martino, from the world of personal development to start us on this journey. Let's first go through a brief recap of the State Mastery Tool. Even if you heard this last week, it is good to hear it again. Remember, repetition is the key to mastering anything. Perhaps that is one of the reasons our dear Swami repeated his teachings to us over and over again. So here's the tool. Our emotional state is like a thermometer. We all have a low zone, 0%, and a high zone, 100%. Many of us now have an awareness of the very important 50% line. When you have dropped below 50, usually due to an external trigger, you are hijacked. You cannot come from your best and highest self, and you cannot solve anything. Your one and only job when you're pushed below 50% is to get yourself back above 50. We all have different ways to do this. Some ways that work for me to get myself back above 50% are to leave the room, listen to anything related to Swami, or to find gratitude within the situation. You should all have this very important list of ways to get back over 50 available for yourselves. We had some homework last week to put the State Mastery Tool into practice. Let's do a quick self-assessment exercise on how things went. Even if you're joining new today, you can look back at the past week and answer the questions based on your current knowledge of the tool. I'll give you a minute to write out the answers to the questions. Now, some of you may have done great, and some of you might have had some issues with awareness of your state and getting yourself back above 50% over the past week. Oftentimes, when we try a new tool and don't succeed right away, we just want to give up and think that maybe the tool is not meant for us. But instead, we should understand that all change happens on a spectrum. It will help us realize that anger management is a journey that we are embarking on, and that we should have some patience with ourselves. If we look at the spectrum of change, we all started at unaware, not knowing anything about the State Mastery Tool or the 50% line. Then we became aware of the tool. Next on the spectrum is cognitive understanding. This is where you intellectually understand the concept and it makes complete sense. You are in agreement that it is best to respond to situations rather than to react. But in the heat of the moment, when you are triggered, sometimes you forget. We then progress on to emotional congruence. This is when you emotionally start connecting to the tool. In the middle of a trigger situation, you actually stop yourself. You remember the State Mastery Tool, get yourself back above 50%, and respond to the situation instead of reacting. After doing this successfully a few times, you start to feel, on an emotional level, how the outcomes to these trigger situations have been so much better. You are happier, and the other person is happier. You start to feel emotionally that this tool really works. And finally, you get to mastery. This is when you don't need to put in any effort or think about the tool in trigger situations. You have now rewired yourself to first get yourself back above 50% and then respond to situations. When you have reached this level of mastery, this is now part of the blueprint of who you are. Understanding that all change happens on a spectrum helps us to view our missteps along the way not as failures, but rather as learning opportunities. So keep going and keep trying. Now, how can we use the state mastery tool within our own families? Ideally, we should develop a culture where we lift each other up when someone is below 50% and not pull each other down. Here are some examples. Our spouse comes home frustrated after a hard day at work and is irritable with us. Knowing the state mastery tool, we have an awareness that they are below 50%, and instead of getting irritated back at them, we can come up with a kind word or gesture to help lift them back up. Wouldn't we want them to do the same thing for us when we are below 50? Another example, our child talks back to us because they are in a bad mood. We could yell back, or we could take a deep breath and then say to them lovingly, I see that you're below 50 right now. Is there anything I can do to help you feel better? For younger kids, we could remind them gently of some things on their list that help them to get back above 50%. If we model this type of family culture to them, they will start to model it right back. If you start doing this regularly, don't be surprised if your child gives you a spontaneous hug the next time that you are feeling down. This is the family culture that you have built, and you get to live in the happy results. Now, the state mastery tool is an inside the moment tool, how to manage our anger when we are already triggered. Doing trigger work is an outside the moment tool, which helps us to resolve the conflict or situation within ourselves to prevent it from happening again. This is how we can root out anger. Let's start doing trigger work with a journal exercise. I'd like you to write out a recent kerfuffle that you experienced. Remember, kerfuffle means an unwanted situation, a situation in which you were triggered. Ideally, pick a kerfuffle that happened within your own family. Answer the following questions. What was the situation and the trigger? And putting yourself back into the moment, whose fault was it? I'll give you a couple of minutes to answer these questions. A few of you might be wiser But for the majority of us, usually it's always the other person's fault. We believe that they need to change to make the situation better and to prevent it from happening again. This is called blame. So, what happens when we blame? Blaming means we are asking the other person to change, rather than we, ourselves, being willing to change. Blaming also means we are giving the other person all the power and then just waiting around expecting to see a different result. We should ask ourselves, how often do we get a different result this way? By blaming, the kerfuffle situation will most likely recur. Blame is the opposite of taking personal responsibility for the situation. Here is what Nelson Mandela has to say about blame. No longer shall we seek to place blame for our condition elsewhere or look to others to take responsibility for our development. We are the masters of our own fate. This is from a man who spent 27 years in prison simply for standing up for a righteous cause. Swami says, when you point one finger at others, note the three fingers that point towards you. That is, when you point out one fault in others, you must examine thrice whether there is any fault in you. Swami is asking us to stop criticizing and blaming, but rather to look within ourselves. We discussed last week the story of Duryodhana and Draupadi, how Duryodhana's anger on hearing Draupadi laughing was the seed that eventually led to the Kurukshetra war. Now, what would have happened if Duryodhana had gotten himself above 50%? Could the war have been avoided? What if it was Yudhishthira who had fallen into the water tank? Would he have responded in the same way to Draupadi's laugh? Duryodhana obviously blamed Draupadi for years for laughing. But was the problem really Draupadi, or was it Duryodhana himself? And we all know the outcome for Duryodhana. He eventually lost everything, including his own life, for all his anger and blaming. So here is the comprehensive approach to anger management. Step 1 is state mastery, as we have learned. It is the inside the moment tool, what to do when you are already triggered. And the very important step 2 is to pull out the trigger. For the kerfuffle situation you just wrote about, I'm sure most of you would like for it not to happen again. But what all of us are waiting for is for the other person to change so that the situation can be resolved and we can be happy. As we know and have experienced many times, it is not likely that the other person will change. So why don't we think about changing ourselves instead? The way to do this is through a tool called pulling the trigger out. Instead of protecting our own triggers by blaming and asking others to change, we could focus instead on pulling the trigger out for ourselves. We'll start this process of pulling the trigger out by first examining our mad monkey mind. Swami says, mind is like a mad monkey, and you should not surrender to it. You should control the mind and keep it under your direction. As soon as a thought comes into your mind, you should examine whether it is a good thought or a bad thought. Our mad monkey mind tells us a lot of stories and creates a lot of false beliefs within us. The funny thing is, we start to believe that our mad monkey mind is telling us the truth. The questions on this slide will help you to delve into your monkey mind chatter. You will use the kerfuffle situation that you just wrote about. Now, this exercise may be a little confusing for some of you, so I'll give you an example. The kerfuffle situation I have is with my daughter, who is 7. She likes to move at her own pace. This trigger, feeling irritated and frustrated with her, often pushes me below 50%. The other day, we needed to leave for her dance class, and instead of putting on her dance outfit and eating dinner quickly, she got distracted making a present for her younger brother. What my monkey mind chatter says to me when I am triggered with this recurrent situation with my daughter is that she is slow, flighty, in her own world, and irresponsible at times. I'll give you a couple minutes now to write out your monkey mind chatter for your kerfuffle situation. Write out everything that churns in your mind when you are triggered by this kerfuffle. Our monkey mind can be tricky and very negative at times. Be as honest with yourself as you can. Now we will start going a little deeper into our trigger. Our monkey mind is often giving things meanings, and that is why we are actually triggered. With my daughter's situation, when I dug a little deeper into my trigger, I was able to see that I actually have a fear that she will turn into a flighty and irresponsible adult. That is really why I am triggered. It has to do with my underlying fear, not with my superficial anger or irritation with my daughter being too slow. I am worried that if I don't drive and push and try to fix her now, that my fear of her turning into an irresponsible adult in the future will manifest. So I'll give you another couple of minutes to write out the answers to some or all of these questions, whichever questions resonate with you, pertaining to the meaning or false beliefs behind your trigger. Here you want to figure out what it is that is really bothering you. And finally, we need to dig even deeper to get to the truth. When I reflected on the situation with my daughter, the actual truth is that she's just 7. All I need to do is to model being a responsible adult myself, and she will eventually learn from that. She's not slow, as my monkey mind has labeled her, but rather has her own steady pace. And I have years to work with her to give her the tools she needs to be a responsible adult. Her gift in life is that she is so sweet, which is far more important than being efficient or fast. The present that she made for my son on the night that I was triggered trying to leave for her dance class on time brought him so much joy the next day. My son was filled with happiness that his sister had made him a spontaneous present and a card. When you look past your monkey mind chatter and the false beliefs and meanings that you place on a situation, you can find much peace in the truth. Now I'll give you a few minutes to answer the questions to try to dig out your own truth. Once you've done the work to pull the trigger out, you can approach the same kerfuffle situation from a much more neutral or objective place. My daughter recently was late getting ready for her SSE class, and I had to work with her to get her there on time. But this time, I wasn't as triggered. I stayed above 50% and was able to work with her for her benefit without making it about me. Another advantage to pulling out the trigger is that you have a much better chance to make a successful alignment or collaboration attempt with the other person. You become more creative and can get to the win-win. Together with my daughter, we've come up with some fun hand signals that I use when I need her to get moving. I also give her more time, knowing that she functions at a different pace than I do. And I'm far less triggered by this characteristic in her than I used to be. This is true anger management. By stopping blaming and instead by taking personal responsibility to introspect and pull out your triggers, you're preventing yourself from getting angry in the first place. Now I realize that this may have been a lot for some of you to take in. So I want to share another personal example so that you can see once more how this process of pulling out your trigger works. Feel free to take a screenshot or a picture of the 3 slides of questions. The goal is for you to be able to use this process to pull out the triggers within your own life. As I mentioned before, you need to be really honest with yourself to do this work and separate yourself from your mad monkey mind. Remember, Swami says that we are not the mind. I am sharing today my personal examples with you all in hopes that this will serve you. This kerfuffle situation I had was with my husband, and it went on for years. He is an early riser and likes to set his alarm clock for 4 or 5 a.m. every day. I am a light sleeper, and poor sleep causes me migraines and makes me very grumpy. You can see how this might have led to many kerfuffles between us. I got pushed below 50% every time his alarm clock woke me up and disturbed my sleep. The trigger I felt was anger and frustration with my husband. So each time this kerfuffle would happen, my monkey mind chatter would say that he is selfish, stubborn, only thinking about himself and wanting to get up when he wants to get up, regardless of my needs. When I looked beyond the monkey mind chatter, I could see that the meaning I was attaching to this trigger was that he doesn't care about me and my health. And the fear that I had was that if I let him win on this issue, get his way with the 4 a.m. alarm clock, then I would be the loser, and perhaps he would not be willing to accommodate my needs or sacrifice his desires in other areas of our relationship. Finally, when I dug deeper, I was able to get past my false meanings and beliefs. The truth is, my husband does care for my health and shows me this in a multitude of ways. He is a very busy person, does a lot of service for the community, and functions best early in the morning. His desire to wake up early in the morning really has nothing to do with me. Those negative thoughts were all just constructs of my mad monkey mind. As I mentioned, once you neutralize your trigger around a situation, you can come up with creative solutions that truly lead to a win-win. My husband now wears a watch alarm band that vibrates, and I now play a white noise app on my phone at night. I rarely wake up anymore with his alarm. But just the other day, for some reason, his alarm did wake me up at 4 a.m. I was completely not triggered. I eventually fell back to sleep. A few years ago, before I did this trigger work, I know I would have woken up irritable and blaming my husband. And the likely result is that he would have also been triggered below 50%. Now you can see, by doing this trigger work, how we can create so much more harmony in our homes and in our lives. This is introspective work, but Swami is asking us to do it. He wants us to take the time and effort to look within. Remember, for every one fault we find in others, we must examine thrice whether there's any fault within ourselves. This is how we can truly solve our issues with anger, by working to pull out one trigger at a time. Sometimes the trigger gets solved on the first go around with this process, but sometimes it takes many days to weeks of introspection to work through a trigger, particularly ones that are recurrent or the ones that deeply affect you. So here is a brief summary of what we have covered today, formulating a comprehensive approach to anger management. Step 1 is the state mastery tool, getting yourself above 50% when you have been triggered so that you can respond to the situation instead of react. Step 2 is to pull the trigger out, to do the introspective work necessary for that particular trigger to prevent it from causing you anger again in the future. Thank you for staying tuned in, and I sincerely hope that you start to use some of these tools that will bring more peace and love within your lives. Feel free to reach out to me with any questions or comments that you may have. I want to end with a quote from our dear Swami. Where there is love, there can be no anger. If you develop your love, then there will be no room left in your heart for hatred and anger to take root. The heart is like a single-seat sofa. Only one quality can establish itself there. It will leave no place for another to enter and occupy it at the same time. A devotee has to make every effort to establish love in his heart. If you want to conquer anger through love, then you have to develop your love in a most magnificent way. Love is always prepared to shower itself freely and to overlook the defects and weaknesses in others. Love has this extraordinary quality. Om Jai Sai Ram.
ఏ మానవుని యందు ద్వేషము, అసూయ, క్రోధము ఈ మూడు కూడాను మునిగి ఉంటాయో అలాంటి వారు చాలా 10 మంది కట్టుకున్న భార్య బిడ్డలు కూడా పలకరించరు.
The man with hatred, jealousy and anger is not acceptable to his own family, the wife and children.
కనుక ఆ దుర్గుణాలను మనం దూరం చేయాలి.
So we should remove those bad qualities.
మనం ప్రేమను పెంచుకుంటే ఈ దుర్గుణాలంతా సహజంగా దూరం అయిపోతాయి.
And once we foster love, these bad qualities will go.
కనుకనే మానవత్వం అనేటువంటిది దివ్యత్వంగా వచ్చినటువంటి ఒక స్వరూపమే.
So human life is essentially divine.
కానీ అనేక మంది లోపల కొన్ని దుర్గుణాలంతా కూడా కదిలిపోతుంటాయి.
We find so many bad qualities among many.
పుట్టినప్పుడు పవిత్రమైన హృదయంగానే పుడతాడు.
He was born sacred.
పెరుగుతూ 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 పెద్ద బాబు కోత అయినట్టుగా ఈ దుర్గుణాలంతా వచ్చి లోపల చేర్చుకుంటారు.
With the passage of time, the wicked qualities also grow.
ఈ యొక్క దుర్గుణాలను తాము చేర్చుకున్నారే కానీ అవి పెరగలేదు.
The presence of bad qualities are of your own making.
ఆ యొక్క దుర్గుణాలు నీకే దూరం చేస్తాయి.
And they will take you, put you to danger.
నీ మానవత్వాన్ని మసిగలుపుతాయి.
You will ruin your own human quality.
కనుక నీవు హ్యూమన్ క్వాలిటీని పాడు చేసుకోవద్దు.
Don't spoil your human nature.
మానవత్వం ఎంత పవిత్రమైనటువంటిది,
The human life is
ఎంత
so
దివ్యమైనటువంటిది,
It's divine.
ఎంత భవ్యమైనటువంటిది,
It's new.
ఎంత సున్నితమైనటువంటిది.
It is so soft and
అలాంటి
tender.
మానవత్వాన్ని ఎందుకు నువ్వు పాడు చేసుకుంటున్నావు?
Such a noble human life you are spoiling with
నీ
your own.
స్వార్థం కోసమని, స్వప్రయోజనం కోసమని పరులను దూషించి, పరులను హింసించి, పరులను నొప్పి పెట్టడం మంచిది కాదు.
For your selfishness and self-interest, it is not proper on your part to harm others, criticize others, put others to suffering.
పరుల యొక్క మంచిని చూచి నీవు ఆనందించు.
Be happy when others are happy.
పరుల యొక్క సుఖాన్ని చూచి నీవు ఆనందించు.
Be happy when others
అప్పుడే
are in
డబుల్
pleasure.
ఆనందం నీకు లభిస్తుంది.
Then only you can find happiness in you.
అప్పుడే మానవత్వం పెంచుకున్న వాడవుతావు.
Then you can develop this human nature.
ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वप्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्। 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 ॐ साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्।
शंभो कुमारा गौरी तनया शंभो कुमारा गौरी तनया गजानना सदया गजानना सदया वरद गणेशा दुरित विनाशा वरद गणेशा दुरित विनाशा प्रणवाकारा नाथा सदया प्रणवाकारा नाथा सदया गजानना सदया जय जय गजानना सदया
ब्रह्म विष्णु
जगत जननी शिव साई शंकरी जगत जननी शिव साई शंकरी माता महेश्वरी पार्वती माया माता महेश्वरी पार्वती माया अभयप्रदायिनी गानविनोदिनी अभयप्रदायिनी गानविनोदिनी माता भवानी जय माता भवानी जय जय जगत जननी शिव साई शंकरी माता महेश्वरी पार्वती अभयप्रदायिनी गानविनोदिनी माता भवानी जय 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 कालिका पालिनी जय कालिका पालिनी जगत जननी शिव साई शंकरी
You are my Lord, you are my Sai. You are my Lord, you are my Sai. You are my Rama, you are my Krishna. You are my Rama, you are my Krishna.
शिवनतराजा Señor, 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 Mahasatya Sai.
Señor, 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 Shivanatharaya. Señor, 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 Mahasatyasai.
Señor, 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 Shivanataraja, Señor, 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 Mahasatya Sai.
Señor, 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 Shivanatharaya. Señor, 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 Mahasatyasai.
Shivanataraja, 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 de mi corazón.
Shivanatharaya, Shivanatharaya, Shivanatharaya,
We are here to sing a sweet day. Let the light of your glory shine on us. Bless us all with your presence today. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. No more tears, no more sorrow, no more death. Banish the darkness with your love. We are born in the golden age of sun. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are blessed. We are blessed, we are blessed, we are
जय जगदीश हरे स्वामी सत्य साई हरे भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्त जना संरक्षक भक्ति महेश्वर ओम जय जगदीश हरे शिवदना श्रीकरा सर्वा प्राणपते स्वामी सर्वा प्राणपते आश्रित कल्पलतीका आश्रित कल्पलतीका आभस्वानः ओम जय जगदीश माता पिता शांति शांति शांतिः समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोका सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भूर्भुवः सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात् अशीमवहु वहिष्ठेमस्ति उष्टास्ति उष्टाहमये शतशाय वहिष्ठायशि धम्मं शरणं गच्छामि संघं शरणं गच्छामि श्मा Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Adonai Echad Adonai Echad. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La ilaha illallah, Allah, Allah. 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 Sai Ishwaraya vidmahe Satyadevaya dhimahi Tanna sarva prachodayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Paramam pavitram Bhava vibhuti Paramam vichitram Leela vibhuti.
Om Shri Sai Ram. Thought for the week. People crave worldly happiness. Analyzed properly, this itself is the disease, and sufferings are but the drugs we take. In the midst of these worldly pleasures, one rarely entertains the desire to attain the Lord. Besides, it is necessary to analyze and discriminate every act of a person, for the spirit of renunciation is born out of such analysis. Without it, renunciation is difficult to get. Miserliness is like the behavior of a dog. It has to be transformed. Anger is enemy number one of the spiritual aspirant. It is like spittle and has to be treated as such. And untruth? It is even more disgusting. Through untruth, the vital powers of all are destroyed. It should be treated as scavenging itself. Theft ruins life. It makes the priceless human life cheaper than a pie. It is like rotten, foul-smelling flesh. Prema Vahini, Chapter 61, Baba.